Hello everyone. Today we'll start a new topic called loops. We'll check the different types of loops and when to use each one and the difference between each one. So the first thing, we'll start with the for loop. Let's see how we can write this for loop. So the first thing, what is the meaning of loops? Before, when we needed to, for example, we need to print the numbers between 1 and 10. So the code would be, we start with enter I equal 1 and then print percentage D, new line, and I, and then I plus plus, and we'll need to repeat this thing, these lines 10 times. So with this code we can print from 1 till 10. So, but what, for example, if I need to print from 1 till 100, from 1 till 1000? So it's not logical that I will write these lines 100 times or 1000 times. That's why loops are created. Loops are a block of code that is repeated by the number of repetitions that I will say to the loop to do. So for example, if I needed to repeat it 10 times, I'll write a code to be repeated 10 times. 100 times, the block of code will be repeated 100 times. So now we'll check the different types of loops and how we will use them. First thing, we have the for loop. Okay. What is the syntax of the for loop? The for loop is written as for, and then open bracket. Here I write the start, semicolon, the condition, semicolon, and the step, and then curly brackets. So for, open the bracket, start, semicolon, condition, semicolon, the step, and then the curly brackets. Okay. As we said in the if condition, the curly brackets is optional. But if the curly brackets are not available, only the first line will be the one inside the for loop. So the same as the if condition, the for also, if the curly brackets are not available, only the first line will be considered inside the for loop. Okay, so what is the start, what is the condition, and what is the step? The start will be the beginning variable that is repeated inside the for loop. So for example, let's take an example that I want to print from 1 till 10. So I want to print 1, let's make it to 5 to be easier to trace it. So from 1 till 5. So I needed to start by 1 and I will finish it by 5. So let's see how it's written. So it will be int I, this is the variable that will be repeated inside the loop. I wanted to start by 1, so here I write I equal to 1. So this is the start of my loop, that I will begin by 1. Okay. The next thing is the condition. This means if the condition is true, the code inside the loop will be executed. If the condition is true, the code inside the loop will be executed. If the condition is false, the code inside the loop will not be executed and it will exit the loop. So here I want to write the code that prints from 1 till 5. So what is my condition? My condition is that I is less than or equal to 5. So let's see how we write it. I less than or equal to 5. So it means if I is less than or equal to 5, the code inside the loop will be executed. What is meant by the step? Meaning how will the value of the I change in each loop. So for example, here I needed to change by 1 each time, so I write it as I plus plus. This means that in each loop the I will change by 1. And here, what is the code that I want to write inside the loop is the print percentage D, new line, I. So let's trace the code again. I begin with a variable called I. the start is I is equal to 1, so I will begin I by assigning 1 to it. Then it will ask a condition. If I is less than or equal to 5, it will enter the loop. If I is greater than 5, it will exit the loop. And I++ means I will change the loop each time the I variable will change by 1. So here I begin. I is equal to 1. Is I less than or equal to 5? True. So it will print I. Then change it by 1. So now I is equal to, so let's say here is our tracing. So I begin by I is equal to 1. Is I less than or equal to 5? True. So it will make I. Now it will print I. Then change I by 1. So I will be 2. Is 2 less than or equal to 5? True. So it will print I. Then change it by 1. So I will be 3. Is I less than or equal to 5? True. It will print I. So then change it by 1. It will be 4. Is 4 less than or equal to 5? True. Is 5 less than or equal to 5? True. It will be 6. So is 6 less than or equal to 5? No. So it will exit the loop. So for example here, if we print the value of I after the loop is %d I. Let's see what will be the output of this code. So I have integer I equal to 1 less than or equal to 5, I++, and print inside the loop. So let's run. So it print 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then the value of I after the loop is 6. Why is it 6? Because when it reached 5 and then increased by 1, it became 6. Is 6 less than or equal to 5? False. So it will exit the loop and continue the execution of the code that is after the loop. Okay. So if we also remove these curly brackets, what will happen? It will be the same output as when we remove the curly brackets, only the first line is inside the for loop. So if we print, it will be the same. Okay, so let's say for example if I started the I by 9, will anything be printed inside the loop? No, as the condition is false from the beginning. So I began I is equal to 9. Is I less than or equal to 5? False. So nothing will be printed inside. So the output will be the value of I after the loop is 9, as it did not change and it did not enter inside the loop. So the for loop, the syntax is the start, the condition, and the step. And here you can write any code. So for example, if I wrote start is equal to 1, and then this one is I plus equal 2, I'm changing it by 2 each time. So what will happen here? It will print 1, 3, 5, and then 7. Here I can write any step that I like. Okay. So what will happen if the condition is always true? If the condition is always true, it will mean that the code will enter inside something called infinite loop. Infinite loop is a loop that will not terminate. Okay, so if I make, for example, let's make it I minus minus. What will happen? It will start by 1, and then each time it will decrease by 1. So the condition will always be true. If you run the code, so it is always printing the number. So this is called the infinite loop, that a loop that is not terminated. Okay, and as you can see here, there's no semicolon at the end of the line. So the for is one of the lines that there's no need to add a semicolon at the end of the line, same as the if and the else and the switch. As you can see here also, what we use to differentiate between each one is the semicolon. So we use the semicolon to differentiate between the start, the condition, and the step. I said the step can be incrementing or decrementing, so adding or decreasing the value of the loop. By default, or we mainly use I, J, and K when we are dealing with the loops, but you can use any other variable. Okay, so this is the main syntax of the for loop. So for loop is I, for I equal to, here for example I'm printing from 0 till 99 and I plus plus, and here is where you write your code. Okay, next thing we have the while loop. So this is the for. Let's now talk about the while loop. While loop is another form of the loop but with different syntax. So start, the main thing that we need to know for each loop, so here let's write the template for start condition So the main thing that you need to know for each type of loop is where we write the start, where we write the condition, and where we write the step. And here your code goes here. So for the while loop, the syntax is that I write the start before the loop and then while condition, and here is your code goes here, and then the step. So it's start, then while, condition, then you write the code, and then you write the step. So as you can see also, the while, there's no semicolon at the end of the while line, and also the curly brackets. If the curly brackets are not written, the first line only will be the one considered inside the while loop. Okay, so let's take the same example. So this one wrote that we needed to print from 1 till 5, and then we print this line. So let's try the same code with the while loop. So in I have to write the start here. So here I started by 1, then while I less than or equal to 5. What will I do? I will print the only print the number I, and then I plus plus. And let's take this line and write it here. So here we wrote the start, I is equal to 1, and then while I is less than or equal to 5. So start, if the condition is true, the code inside the loop will be executed. So is I less than or equal to 5 true, so it will print the first value of I, and then I plus plus, and then return again, check the condition. I is now equal to 2, so is 2 less than or equal to 5 true, print I and increment I, and this goes on until it reaches 6. So is 6 less than or equal to 5 false, it will go to print this. So let's take this copy and execute this code. And run. So we can see that it is the same output from 1 till 5, and the value of I after the loop is 6. So the while loop, it does the same action as the for loop but with different syntax. Later in the tutorial we'll find which time we will use the for loop and which time we will use the while loop. Okay. So also, if you forgot to add the step, the condition will always be true, as it's always I is equal to 1 and I will always be less than or equal to 5, so it will always be true, so it will result in an infinite loop. So don't forget to add the step. If you forgot to add the step, it will always be, the condition will always be true and it will enter in an infinite loop. So this is the second type of loops, the while loop. The start, the condition, and the step. Okay, so let's take the next type. The next type is called the do while loop. Okay, let's see the syntax. So here's the do while loop. Also start, then do curly brackets, code here, step, condition. This is the sequence of the do while loop. First thing, I write the start, and then do curly brackets, write your code here and the step, and then the condition is here. And as you can see, there's a semicolon here, so don't forget to add the semicolon here. Okay, so what is the difference between the do while and the while loop? The difference is, you can see it by the sequential of the code, is that here we check the condition before executing the code. So here at the beginning we check the condition before executing the code once. So here I checked is I is equal to 1, and then if I is less than 5, so I'm checking the condition before executing the code inside the loop. The do while will execute the code first and then check the condition. So for example, let's say I wrote I is equal to, let's write a code by while and then let's write it by do while. For example, I started by I is equal to 1 while I, let's say I is less than 0, print I is less than 0, and then we'll print I, then I minus minus. Okay, and here let's write a line outside the loop, %d I. So this is a code written by while. So I equals 1, while I is less than 0, print I is less than 0, and then print the value of I minus minus, and then outside the loop we'll print outside the loop and print the value of I. How many times will the code be inside the loop be executed? 0, because I is already greater than 0, so the condition is false, so it will not go inside the loop, so it will not be executed. So let's take this and write it here. So it will only print outside the loop once. Okay, let's repeat this code, but this time we'll use do while. So I start also I equal to 1, do print, let's take the same code, and let's take the condition, how many times will this code be executed? It will execute it at least once. So because the do while execute the code first and then ask the condition. So any code is written by the do while will be executed at least once. Any code written by the for and the do while, the for and the while cannot be executed if the condition is already false. So here, even if the condition is false, the code will be executed at least once. So let's take it and see. Then run. So it will print. Oh, let's just add new line. It will print I is less than 0, and then outside the loop 0. So it executed the code inside even if the condition is already false. So it will execute the code and then check the condition, and then if the condition is true, it will return and execute the code again. If it's true, it will return and execute the code again. And then here it will print outside the loop if the code reached false. So the do while execute the code at least once at the beginning, and even if the condition is already false. Okay. So we start the step and the condition. So these are the three different types of loops. Now we'll see when to use each one. So the for loop and the while loop are working the same way. You can use either of them, but you need to know them all. If you know the number of iterations, means the number of repetitions that will happen inside the loop. So how many numbers will the code inside the loop be executed? If you know the number of repetitions, it will be better to use the for loop. If you only know the stopping condition, so it will be better to use the while, and we'll see the different types of this code. Do while will execute the code once even if the condition is not valid. That is because the code comes before the condition. So as we saw here, that the code comes before the condition, so the code is executed first and then we'll ask the condition. Okay. So for example, let's take some useful loop. These loops will be used mainly in most of the questions, so you can know this as a template. So here, for example, I'm reading an input from the user. So for example, if I want to calculate the sum of the values that are entered by the user, so this template will be used. So as I know the number of iterations or the number of repetitions of the code, it's better to use the for loop. So let's see how is this written. So let's assume that I have n, which are the number of numbers that the user will enter. So I will need a variable n, a variable I that is used in the repetition, and a variable x that I will take the input from the user. So first thing is I will take, so let's print, please enter the number of numbers that you will enter, and then scan %d, and so here I took the number of repetitions or the number of numbers that the user will enter. So to loop it, write for I is equal to 1, I less than or equal to n, I plus plus. Everything. So print enter a number, scan, I will scan the number from the user, and then here I can do anything that I want to do with this x. So each time the user enters the x, I can here, for example, add it, multiply it, subtract it, anything I will do with x. So this can be used as a template, that anytime you're taking inputs from the user inside the loop, it's better to use it as this. And we'll see examples in the, so here we will have, yeah, here we'll see example if you want to take some. So next, here I read input until the user enter -1. So here I don't know how many numbers will the user enter, but we agreed that if he enters -1, so this means that this is the end. So as here we don't know the number of iterations or the number of repetitions, so it's better to use the while loop. Okay, so let's see how is this written. I don't have here n because I don't know the number of numbers that the user will enter, so I only have x, and also I will not need I, so only x is needed. Okay, we said that in any loop we need to know the start, the condition, and the end, and the step. So here, what is my condition? The condition is that x is not equal to -1, because if he entered -1, this means I will exit the loop. What will I do here is I'm scanning let's say that my step will be that I will scan the number and x. So this is the condition and this is the step, because my step here is the number that I'm taking from the user, because I will check if the new number he entered is -1, then I will exit the loop. If it's not -1, then I will execute my code normally. So your code goes here. So what will be my start? My start will be that I will scan the first number he entered. Where and x. So here I will scan the first number that he entered, and then if he entered a number that's not -1, I will execute the code on it, and then scan the next number. If the next number is not -1, execute the code. Next number is not -1, execute the code. When he enters -1, I will stop executing the code and then execute what is after the loop, and we'll see the examples with this. Let's say, and then we will return for this. Let's say I want to write a code that calculates the sum of the numbers that the user enter. For example, first, so let's write the questions. So first we want to calculate the sum of n numbers entered by the user, and then calculate the sum so the first question, I want to calculate the sum of n numbers entered by the user. So here I know the number of iterations, so it's better to use for loop. The second question, calculate the sum of the numbers entered by the user until -1 is entered. So here I don't know the number of iterations, so it's better to use the while loop. So let's see how we write this code. We can undo, I think we already have it. Yes. So here I have integer n, I, and x. Please enter the number of numbers that you will enter. So here I got n, the number of numbers that he will enter. The loop will start from 1 till n and I plus plus. Enter a number and then I will scan the number that he entered. Okay. I want to calculate the sum. So in any equation or in any problem that you want to calculate the sum, we need to have an extra variable called sum. So this variable I will update it by sum. Okay, the initial value for the variable for sum must be 0. I started by 0, and then here, how can I add sum to x and keep on adding it? It will be sum equal to sum plus x. So let's say, for example, I entered 1, so it will be 0 plus 1 equal to 1. So now the value in sum is 1. Next value is entered is 5, so it will be 5 plus 1 will be 6. Then we entered 7, so 6 plus 7 is 13, and it goes on. So, and then at the end, so print the sum is percentage d sum. Okay, let's test this code. First, please enter the number of numbers that you enter. For example, I'll enter 5 numbers. Enter a number 1, 2, 4, 5, and 6. That should be 18. Yes, 18. The sum is 18. 1 plus 2 is 3. 3 plus 4, 7. 7 plus 5, 12. 12 plus 6 is 18. So the sum is 18. Okay. So as we said, this is the template that you use if you want to operate on n numbers entered by the user. Okay. So this is the answer for the first question. The second question saying that calculate the sum of numbers entered by the user until -1 is entered. So here I don't know the iterations. I don't know the number of iterations of, or the number of numbers entered by the user. So I only have integer x, and then let's say printf enter a number or -1 to exit. So scan percentage d and x, and my condition is x is not equal to -1. Also I need to add the value variable sum. This is equal to 0. Here sum plus equal to x. This is the same as sum is equal to sum plus x. We can also write it as sum plus equal x. Then I will, let's say, I will take this again, copy and paste it, format it, and here print the sum is percentage d and x. Sorry. So okay, so let's run. Something is missing, semicolon. Let's run. So enter a number or -1 to exit. So for example, enter 5, 4, 1, 4, 6, 5. I think this is enough, so I'll enter -1. The sum is 25. So it kept on adding the numbers until -1 is entered. I hope this is clear till now. Okay, let's check the next examples. Okay, so we finish this one here. Validating that the input is a positive number using while loop. So these two examples are the same, but one is using the while loop and one is using the do while. Mainly we use the do while loop if we want to validate the input of the user. For example, if you want to validate that the input of the user is always positive, so it's better to use the do while. We'll check this operation by doing it using the do while and using the while to see the difference between both of them. So for example, let's start first, but by validating the input is positive number using a while loop. So I will take the input from the user until he enters a valid positive number. So I will only complete until he enters a valid positive number. Let's say, for example, you are writing a program for a bank that it will accept the amount of money that the user is adding inside his account. So the amount of money entered must be positive. It cannot be negative. So you will always ask the user to enter a positive number. Until he enters a positive number, you will not continue. So let's see how is this done. I think we can use it here. Enter a positive number. Okay, so here you will enter a positive number. Okay. Only here, outside the loop, I will continue. So here, continue your code. So only if he enters a positive number, I will continue my code. So for example, I ask him for his bank account or like this. But if he entered a negative number, what will I do? I will ask him again to enter the number again. So I'll take this and then add it here. Okay. So what will be my condition is that x is less than or equal to 0. So if he entered an x which is less than or equal to 0, it will always stay inside the loop until he enters a positive number. So let's say that here, print thank you for entering a positive number. Let's run the code. So enter a positive number, enter 0, it will keep asking negative 10, negative 14, negative 4, negative 4, negative 7. Only if I entered a positive number, so then 50, to tell me thank you for entering a positive number, and to exit the loop. So here I'm validating that the input of the user must always be a positive number or greater than 0. Okay. This is how to do it using the while. Let's see how we can do it using a do while. Okay, so we have x. Let's just comment or keep this code here so that you can check the difference. X do while x less than or equal to 0. Format it. Then let's comment this code and just use this code. So this is the same code but using the do while. So as you can see, we have less number of lines. So if we'll just minimize it, you can see that this, using the do while, we minimize the number of lines, and it will do the same functionality as this code but using the do while. So let's run. Enter a positive number, negative 5, negative 4, negative 7, negative 4, negative 6, then 50. Thank you for entering a positive number. So you can use both, but it's better to use it or to write it using the do while. Okay. So mainly the usage of the do while is to validate the input of the user. So here this is using while, and this is using the do while. Okay. Next we have two new keywords, break and continue. Okay, let's see what they can do. First one is break. Break is used to exit from the loop according to a condition. So for example, I want to exit from the loop if I reached 5 or if I reached 3. So for example, I have for I is equal to 1, I less than or equal to 5, and I plus plus. If I less than or equal to, or for example, let's say if I is equal to 3, I will break. And here I will print %d new line and I. So let's take this code and test it. We don't need this now. So here I have for I is equal to 1, I less than or equal to 5, I plus plus. If I is equal to 3, let's just if I is equals to 3, I will break. So I will exit. So let's just here print out of the loop. So if I is equals to 3, I will break and I will exit the loop. So I'm expecting that the output will be 1, 2, and then out of the loop. It will not continue the loop. So let's see the output. Something is missing. Yeah, we did not initialize I. Oh, something is missing here. So it prints 1, 2 out of the loop. So when I reach 3, I entered break. So break will exit from the loop. Okay. So this is the keyword break. The next keyword we have is continue. So continue statement is used to skip one iteration from the loop. So here we'll use the same code but change break to continue. So if I is equals to 3, I will continue, which means that I will skip any code that is written inside the loop and I will continue to the next iteration. So it will print 1, 2, 4, 5 out of the loop. So let's see. 1, 2, 4, 5 and out of the loop. So it skipped the 3 because I added that if I is equal to 3, continue and skip this code. So this is the break and continue. Okay, let's see the next question. What is the function of the following program? Try and trace it and find the function of this program. So just try, pause the video, check this code and find the function of this program. Okay, so let's trace it together. So here I have an n, x and I, so 3 variables, and I have a variable sum. So by default here I'm calculating a sum. Okay, let's just continue. Enter the number of elements. So here I'm taking the number of elements that the user will enter, adding it in n. For loop from I is equal to 1, I is less than or equal to n, I plus plus. I'm looping n times, scanning the number, and then if the number entered is greater than 0, I will sum the number. So I'm only adding the number if it is greater than 0. So the function of this program is that I'm calculating the sum of numbers entered by the user only if they are positive. So I'm calculating the sum of positive numbers. So the program calculates the sum of positive numbers. Now let's try and trace the following code. So let's write it better in blocks and see what will happen. So here we have integer x and digit, printf enter a number, then scanning a number. While x is not equal to 0, I'm taking the remainder of the last digit, taking the last digit, then printing the number, and then dividing by 10. So let's trace it and see what's happening. For example, if I entered 562, the first thing is that I will do 562 modulus 10. So 562 modulus 10 will give me the last digit. 562 divided by 10 will remove the last digit. If you remember, I think in the third lab we've done a similar question, but we gave you a number with 5 digits and we asked that we want to print each digit in a separate line. So here, for example, here we don't know how many digits are entered by the user. So how many digits are in the number entered by the user. So we use the while loop, as we don't know how many times we need to repeat the code. So let's complete tracing. 5, 6 now modulus 10 will give us 6. 5, 6 divided by 10 will give us 5. 5 modulus 10 will give us 5. 5 divided by 10 will give 0. So our stopping condition is reaching 0. So the loop will be while x not equal to 0, then we take x modulus to 10, print the digit, and then x divided by 10. So this code is used to print each digit by itself in a separate line. Or we can replace the printf and use the digit to do any code that we want. For example, if you want to calculate how many 7 are available in a number. So for example, if I entered 1, 2, 4, 5, 7, 7, so here I have 2 7s, so the answer will be 2. And these examples will be done during the lab. So let's check the output. So if I think the terminal is already on, if there's semicolon, so for example, let's enter 7, 8, 4, 1. It will print 1, 4, 8, and 7. Okay. So the next thing we have, nested loops. Let's start by doing the. I think I have it here. Yes. Nested loops. Nested loops mean that we have a loop inside another loop. So this is the outer loop and this is the inner loop. The first thing that we need to know that which code is inside which loop. So here we have the curly brackets. The curly brackets indicates that all this code is inside this loop, and here there's no curly brackets, so only the first code is inside this, the first line is inside this loop. So this line is inside this loop and all of this is inside the outer loop. Okay, so let's trace what will happen here. So let's see, I have I is equal to 1, so let's start. I is equal to 1, I less than or equal to 5, I plus plus, j is equal to 1, j less than or equal I, and j plus plus. So I will start by 1, I is equal to 1, and j is equal to 1, and j will loop till I is equal to 1, so j will loop from 1 to 1. So I will print j once, I print 1, and then print a new we'll print a new line. Okay, then I increment I by 1, so I will be equal. So now I is 2, and j is back to 1 again. J will loop from 1 till 2, so it will print 1 and then print 2. So 1, 2, and then j will be by 3. 3 is less than or equal to false, so it will exit the loop and print a new line. Then return I now is equal to 3, j is back to 1, then j will print 1, 2, so j will be is equal to 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 is less than or equal to 3, false, so it will exit the loop and print a new line. So we'll print 1, 2, 3, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We can see the output here. Let's try. I think I already, yeah. So yeah, we'll hit integer I and j. Let's format it and run the code. It will print 1 as we checked in the tracing. So this is called nested loop, that we have a loop inside another loop. It will also be useful when we start explaining the two-dimensional arrays. Okay. Let's now check. Here I need to rewrite the following loops using while. So I have a loop written by for, and I need to rewrite it using while. Okay, so I think this here is 10, and here we are printing a star and a new line. So let's first check the output. So it's printing, instead of the numbers, we are printing stars. This one will be useful if you remember the first lab we did. It was printing stars, a pattern of stars. We can find an equation for printing the pattern of stars and just use it, print it using the for loops, or using the loops for or while loop. Okay, so let's change this to a while instead of for. So just let me zoom out so that you can see both of them. So we need integer I and j. Let's check our conditions that we have. The for start, condition, step, and our code goes here. Then the while, we have the start, condition, the code, and then the step. So we'll use this rules to convert from for to while, or from while to for. So first thing, we'll do the start. So I is equal to 1, then while the condition I less than or equal 10. Let's write the step before we forgot it. The step is I plus plus, and then we write the code of the second loop. The start is j is equal to 1, then while j less than or equal I. Let's write the step j plus plus, and the code is print. Yeah, here we don't need this. Print if the star, where is the star? Star. And then here print the new line. We can remove this code, we don't need it. Let's run to check that everything is working. Yes, we got the same output. So start, condition, step, the code, start, condition, step, and the code. So this is the rules that we'll use if you want to convert from for to while, or from while to for. Yes, okay. Next question, we have write a C program that calculates the value of pi from the infinite series. We have this series is used to calculate the value of pi. As you can see, the numerator is always the same, which is 4. We have to changing variables inside it. Here you can see the first time it's positive, then negative, positive, negative, positive, negative. And the denominator, first time it's 1, then 3, 5, 7, 9. So we need to find an equation to follow this series. Okay, we can check it here. Okay. So here we have, let's say the first time 1, the denominator was 1. If I is 2, the denominator is 3. If I is 3, the denominator is 5. I is 4, the denominator is 7, and so on. You can see the pattern here is that the denominator is equal to 2 multiply I minus 1. So for example here, 2 multiply 1 is 2, minus 1 is 1, 2 multiply 2 is 4, minus 1 is 3, 2 multiply 3 is 6, minus 1 is 5, and so on. So the equation would be denominator is equal to 2 multiply I minus 1. There's another way of solving this. As we said before, that most of the time in the computers we start by 0, not by 1. So if we started by 0, the change in the equation will be, instead of minus 1, it will be plus 1, because 2 multiply 0 plus 1 is 1, 2 multiply 1 plus 1 is 3, 2 multiply 2 plus 1 is 5, 2 multiply 3 plus 1 is 7, and so on. So it will be 2 multiply I plus 1. Okay. So this is the equation used to calculate the denominator part. Okay. Now we need to know how we will calculate the change between the positive and the negative, positive and negative. A simple thing is that if you did minus 1 to the power 0 will give you 1, minus 1 to power 1 will give you negative 1, minus 1 power 2 will give you 1, minus 1 power 3 will give you negative 1. So we can use the negative 1 to do the alternating between the positive and the negative. Let's see how we write the code. I think I already don't have it here. Okay, so let's write it. We don't need this one. Okay. N, we need the number of terms, I for the iteration, and then we need float sum. We started by 0, as we said that, or let's call it pi because we are calculating the value of pi. Started by 0. First, print, enter the number of terms, percentage d, and n. Okay, so we start the for. Here I need to loop n times. So if I started from 0, I started I from 0, then I should loop till n only, not less than or equal n. So if I started from 0, I will loop till less than n. If I started from 1, I loop till less than or equal n. I plus plus. Okay. Then calculate sum will be equals to sum plus, or we can write it as sum, we called it pi, so pi plus equal. First thing, let's calculate the alternating between the positive and the negative. We will use the power, negative 1 to the power I. So as we use the power equation, so we need to add hashtag include the math library. Okay, this will be multiplied by 4, as the numerator is always 4, divided by 2 multiply I. We said it will be 2 multiply I, I forgot, yeah, plus 1. Okay, but here if you kept it like this, there will be an issue in the equation, so we need to add brackets here so that all of this is done together. If we remove the bracket, it will divide first 4 divided by 2. We don't need this, we need to divide 4 divided all of this, and then at the end we'll print the value of pi is percentage f, and then print boy. Okay. Yes, the last question we had, I think I've skipped this one. Yeah, if I want to calculate the product of numbers, so I think I already have the codes. I need to calculate the product of n numbers. Okay, so it is the same as calculating, so it is the same as this question that we wanted to calculate the sum of n numbers, but here I want to calculate the product of n numbers. So the product will be, instead of the sum, it will be product multiplied by product equal product multiplied by x. But in the sum, we started by sum is equal to 0. Here in the product, we must start product equal 1, because if you started by 0, it will multiply by 0 and the result will remain as 0. So we need to do it product equal to product equals to 1. And also, if I started I equals to 0, so I will loop till less than n. If I started I is equal to 1, it will be less than or equal n. Okay, if we can run and check, so let's say we'll add 4 elements, 1, 2, 3, 4, it will be 24, so the result is 24. So let me check if we have anything else missing. This is done, this is done, this is done, this is done, this is done. Okay, so that's it. I hope the loops part is now clear. You will find extra examples in the lab when it is posted. Feel free to ask any questions you want on the group or on the channel. Thank you. Goodbye.